What's a way you saw someone living their life that blew your mind in a good way? I rented a room from a divorced, retired woman in her 60s. She was having so much fun. She basically rented out the room to have disposable income since all her kids were grown and living on their own. She turned what was the master bedroom bathroom into a little suite with a mini kitchen, and it had a sliding glass door as its own entrance. She still had privacy in the rest of the house as the connecting door had a deadbolt on her side. She had a ton of plants in her small back patio and little side patio. She loved gardening and was always making plans to go to local concerts with her friends. She was also a great painter and used her garage as an art studio. I don't live there anymore, but she just sent me a card congratulating me on my marriage and has a trip planned to go to Portugal with her sisters later this year. We always picture divorced older woman as kinda sad and maybe bitter, but she was loving her independent lifestyle and making her home whatever she wanted it to be. Once I ended up staying in a wellness resort where everyone except me and my cousin were 60+ years old. I was 20. There was a woman of around 75 at morning yoga, who was so flexible and bendier than even me, who has been practicing since I was 6 years old. I asked her if she had practiced yoga every day since she was young, and she said, no, she had never done it until 5 years ago. It blew my mind. Until then I had thought you can't become physically fitter as you age, or maybe even try new things. All the oldies in my life got more inflexible as they went on. I often think of her when I am too old crosses my mind. I was 10, we got new neighbors, a married couple with no kids. Here was the crazy part for me, they were both women. I had never seen anything like it. I didn't know that was allowed. And it also finally clicked that there wasn't something wrong with me, girls can like girls. One of my best friends' business partners bought a handful of the same black shirts, some pants and a few different colored sweaters, and just wears some combination of them every day for work so she doesn't have to think about what she's going to wear. I have put together a few work outfits and it has made my life so much easier. Every child-free person, I want to be exactly like them. In my husband's family there is a GMA, her daughter married into the family. Anyway, GMA is from England. Her daughter married an American, aka husband's family member. From the subsequent grandkids, and her other children and grandchildren, her family is spread about the earth. She doesn't live anywhere. She spends a month or two at a time wherever she pleases. Go to this kid's house, that grandkid's home, etc. Sometimes it's a long cruise. She is invited to all family vakas. She is a blast. The biggest complaint her family has is they have to work and can't hang out with GMA every night to 3 am. By just being a good GMA, and being close to her family, she doesn't have to own a piece of property. She does technically have a condo in Florida, but no clue how long she actually spends there. My former boss had 3 young kids and was the executive director. She worked super hard, but she had clear work boundaries. She left work at 3 p.m. every day to be on time for school pickup. She genuinely loved her job and was respected. No one disrespected her authority or made her feel like she didn't earn everything she had. Her husband was super supportive and was a decent co-parent. I had never seen a woman in that position before. Everyone says you can have it all, but you rarely see it, especially with women with small kids. It was very inspiring to see firsthand and a great blueprint on how to manage it all. I went to my first women's mountain biking camp, which I, 35F, thought I'd be one of the oldest at. Showed up and I was at the bottom end of the age groups, met a woman named Deb who was our coach. She ripped up rock gardens, did wheelies and was a complete badass. She did a bike maintenance class and she had no hesitations about getting grease everywhere. She said I love grease and dirt during it, and it really opened my mind that I can be like her hopefully someday. The way she acted, I felt she was in her upper 40s. No, this superwoman was 6'1". When I originally signed up for the clinic, my parents had said maybe it's a great time to get this out of your system as you're aging. I came back from the clinic thinking that this hobby can be part of my retirement plans one day still. I was in a super unhappy marriage a couple years back. A regular at the restaurant I was working at just had this glow about her. An incredible aura, and her energy and smile were infectious. I told her one day that she has an amazing energy about her and that I wanted to exude that same energy. She just hugged me and said, I am happy. I was like, I want that. I finally gained the courage to leave my ex-husband shortly after and have been living my best life, striving to be just like Deb. So there was this video going around that was this guy saying, "Ah shit. You don't know about doing whatever the fuck you want? Damn. I'm sorry man, I hope you find that someday." It was in response to someone questioning him wearing nail polish. It blew my mind because it was such an exquisite way to tell someone to fuck off, in a way that is really positive and does not receive the other person's negativity. It changed my entire perspective on how to respond to busybodies and assholes in a way that is unapologetic and authentic to how I would like to be. I started following this Instagrammer, Polychrome3, who does really colorful maximalist outfits. She inspired me to dress more creatively and layer to wear my fancy clothes more often. I don't dress to the level of fancy that she does, but I'm definitely having more fun with my wardrobe. I used to work at a rental car company in an airport. I live in the Midwest US and it gets very cold, snowy, and windy in the winter. One day, shortly after Christmas, these two older women come in wearing these plush, faux fur coats, hair and makeup done just looking very glamorous and fun. As I'm returning their car, they tell me how they've been best friends for like 40 years. Both lost their husbands relatively young, and since their kids were all grown and they hated the winters, decided to move to Las Vegas and buy a condo. They were real-life golden girls. All of the comments on this post are so positive and wholesome. Some days I love the internet. I joined a solo travelers group through a travel agency to go on my first international trip as an adult. I got lucky that my solo travelers group was very small, just 5 of us. One of them was a woman in her 60s. She has no husband, no kids, just a pet parrot at home. I told her that this was my first international trip, and she told me this was her 120th country, and after this trip, she's going to another country. I was blown away because I had never met or knew a woman personally who was single and traveling the world. Especially in a society where women are supposed to get married and have kids and that's it. She told me she has no regrets about anything and loves her life. I was so inspired by her, especially since I've been single for 10+ years and the only one in my friend circle that has been single for that long. Edit. This is not a promo, but folks asked about the company I picked. Company is called Culture Trip. They're a very new company compared to EF or Intrepid, so the groups will be very small. I like Culture Trip because most of the hotels they put you in are 5+ star fancy hotels and they make sure to include a cultural learning aspect with chances to meet and talk to locals to learn more about the culture of the country you're visiting. They also add more attractions to the itinerary than other companies. Most meals were also included in the package. I believe they added a free gift. Too, it was a necklace with my name engraved. I only had to pay extra for plane, visa, activities outside of the set itinerary, and soft drinks. My first effective therapist said, "I try to do the least amount of work for the most money." It gave me permission to put myself and my needs first for the first time in my life. And to ask for a fair wage in my work. My 22F parents were very irresponsible teens and abusive. Father was physical. Mother was more mental and emotional. So most of my life I never really understood what a healthy relationship looked like. A few years ago, I got more in touch with my cousin and her husband. The way they talk to each other, help each other, even the way they argue is so healthy and loving. I used to think things like that were fairy tales. Seeing them made me finally get the guts to start dating. It gave me hope that love does exist and that I could have the same happiness with good communication with a partner. I've lived in the same areas for a few years and there's a man who works at the liquor store per bar down the street. I don't go there often, but it seems like he's been working there every time I've gone in the past few years. During the summer he captains fishing charters on Lake Superior on top of the full-time retail gig. He's been doing both for over 40 years. Yesterday I asked him if he still gets joy from the charters and he just lit up. He shared a story of an 86-year-old pulling in a large trophy fish. A little 6-year-old girl catching a fish bigger than her. Shared his grandpa's smoking brine recipe with me. Just lit up like a little kid. It really inspired me. I recently took a super part-time nursery job. I don't need the money, and I could bartend part-time again for 2 to 3x the extra savings. But it's something I'm passionate about and I'm getting paid to learn. So far it feels more like a paid hobby than working 25% more every week. I think I'm going to try to stick to that track for a while. I'm fortunate enough to be able to get by without second jobs anymore. But getting paid to do something I love, even part-time, is just an extra level of satisfaction. My old boss. She was in her 60s. Every year she took 2 months off to travel. Her and her bestie would take turns choosing the location and then they would go there together. They had been doing this for several years. I always thought she seemed like she was living it up. It's not as revolutionary as some of these, but my grandmother puts her watered-down dish soap in a spray bottle and it's much easier to do dishes that way. I love it. When I was in Greece, on an island, I met a woman from the US. She talked about having bopped about traveling and waitressing, then met her husband whose family owned a farm in Greece. Now she lives there with him and they have all of these huge art projects ongoing on the farm. She was teaching a marble sculpting class, which is how I met her. I've never ever had a free roaming time of my life, not planned, always low risk and thoroughly thought out, long-term life goal focused. Her life seemed so very different from mine and it helped me think more about other possible paths and what makes me truly happy. My aunt and uncle are well off. But what inspired me was how hard they leaned into their priorities. She drove up to dinner in a 2006 Camry, wearing clothes she's been wearing since the early 2000s and the same purse I've seen her wear for decades. But they had just gotten back from a trip abroad. And they brought an expensive bottle of wine to dinner and a graduation gift for the waitress's son.